there you have it. Keir Starmer has resigned with a very gracious speech. He said that he transformed the Labour Party, he turned the Labour Party back into an election-winning machine, but he said that he understood that people in his own party and maybe elsewhere felt that he was no longer the right person to lead the country. Now, he said that he was going to hold a leadership election, or the Labour Party will hold a leadership election. That's kind of true, but it all depends on whether or not more than one candidate steps forward. There will be the opportunity for other people to stand, but what I think we know is that Andy Burnham is going to stand. Everybody assumes Andy Burnham is going to win, so there may not be an election as such. It might be a contest that Andy Burnham simply walks into and becomes the new Prime Minister with a coronation. If I was Keir Starmer, and you did see at the very end of his speech that his voice broke a little bit, he was emotional. If I was him, I'd be quite upset. I mean, he did win a general election with a massive majority, taking the Labour Party from near annihilation and turning them into this election-winning machine once again. Andy Burnham's won a by-election, but it seems that the party has decided that makes Andy Burnham a better fit to be Prime Minister. So we don't yet know at this point when Mr Burnham is going to take over. It seems that if there is no other candidate, it will be around the time of the summer recess when Parliament breaks up for the summer break. If there is an actual contested election, if somebody else stands, it looks like in September we're going to get a new Prime Minister. But for the time being, the United Kingdom fairly leaderless. Keir Starmer remains in charge, even though he's resigned. He hasn't actually walked out yet, but we don't know who's going to take over, and so Keir sadly can't make any decisions at the moment. He doesn't really have any authority. So we're seeing what Labour used to criticise the Tories for doing, dumping their leaders, dumping their Prime Minister. Now Labour are doing it themselves, and let's see how that works out.
So what's happened here is that Labour came into power less than 2 years ago with this enormous majority, and they've blown it. You know, they've blown it in a very short period of time because Keir Starmer's had these two massive scandals, the Lord Ali scandal and the Peter Mandelson scandal, but at the same time he's ruined the economy. You know, he's overtaxed the economy, he's overregulated the economy, and the result has been that we've got higher welfare, higher borrowing, higher debt, and people are losing their jobs. And this is why he's having to go. And I'm very worried that actually his successor will be no better, that the fundamentals are still there. You've got a Labour Party that's addicted to high welfare spending and doesn't understand what you need to do in order to get the economy going, because none of them have ever worked in business. So I think the problems will still be there. We've said we'll work with anyone who wants to cut the welfare budget, get people back into work and cut the welfare budget so that we can reduce the national debt and cut people's taxes so we can get growth. We made that offer to Keir Starmer. We'll make that offer to whoever succeeds Keir Starmer. But I don't think the Labour Party are up for that conversation, and that's very worrying.
What about Andy Burnham specifically?
I don't think Andy Burnham will do it. Andy Burnham's always been, big on tax and spend, and I think that those promises will get him into trouble. I think that's right. I mean, we have a very clear policy on energy, on North Sea, on oil and gas. We think we should be using our own oil and gas. We should be getting it out of the North Sea rather than buying it from other countries. And we know that we need to reduce energy prices and electricity prices in this country so that we can get the economy growing. And the SNP and Labour don't understand that at all. I think this Labour government is shot to pieces. I really hope that whoever takes over from Keir Starmer sees the light and understands that they have to do what Kemi Badenoch has set out, cut costs, cut tax, get growth, but they're not going to do that. And so I'm afraid we're going to get more of the same.
Obviously, we have the news we expected this morning. What's your first reaction?
Relief that we can call an end to the first 2 years of this Labour government, which quite frankly under Keir Starmer has been nowhere near good enough. What we must do now is obviously change our Prime Minister, but more importantly change the direction that this Labour government has gone in. Well, certainly so far what I've heard from Andy Burnham in regard of nationalisation of utilities and reindustrialising forgotten ex-industrial heartlands the length of breadth of the United Kingdom, that's certainly changed with my own politics, because what we have seen, especially in Scotland, is 4 decades of deindustrialisation that has ravaged communities.
Nigel Farage this morning was speaking of, he's called for a general election. What's your response to that?
utter nonsense from Nigel Farage in Reform, but that's what I come to expect of their reactionary politics. We are round about, give or take, 40% of the way through this parliamentary term. We're not even at half time yet. We have got the chance to really change the direction this Labour government goes in and deliver the change that people so desperately need. No, now we've got to look forward. We've got to draw a line under the failures and the mistakes and the missteps and the misjudgments of the first 2 years. Draw a line under that and govern by real Labour Party values. That's the solutions that the country needs.
On a personal level, I wish Keir Starmer and his family well. Leadership is very tough and it takes a big toll on individuals, so this will not have been an easy decision for Keir Starmer to take, and I wish him and his family well. On a political level, the Prime Minister has recognised what I think many of us have seen for a long time, that his government is failing, and it has failed to deliver the change and the transformation and the improvement in people's living standards that people were looking for. And of course, this is another change of Prime Minister in the United Kingdom, which demonstrates after a relatively short space in time, again, the United Kingdom is unable to sustain stable government. And for the people of Scotland, we've got to look at this and say the best future for us is to take our own future into our own hands with independence.
Fundamentally, what does the next leader have to do in order to avoid this almost constant churn of leaders?
The next leader has got to improve people's living standards. That is the fundamental issue that's got to be confronted. That's what's been eroding trust in political leaders. It all goes back to Brexit, because Brexit has shrunk the UK economy and it's shrunk living standards. And until such time as a UK Prime Minister has got the courage to say we've got to get back into the European Union and recover from the damage of Brexit, the better. Now, I've got an answer to that. The answer to that for me is for Scotland to be an independent member of the European Union, and my government is focused on making sure that we do all that we can to improve living standards, and that we do all that we can to get back into the European Union as an independent country.
You're saying this shows the need for independence, but what does it say about the independence movement that despite this constant churn of leaders, both Tories and now Labour, the polls for independence have basically been static for years?
Well, what the recent polls demonstrate is a pretty consistent lead for support for Scottish independence, and that's been but it's still a lead, and it still demonstrates that strong support for Scottish independence. We've just had a Scottish parliamentary election in which the Party of Independence has just been returned to office after 19 years in office with a commanding lead over all of our political rivals. So what I think it demonstrates is that more and more people in Scotland are looking on at the Westminster chaos and seeing that that does not provide any answers or any solution for the people of Scotland, and that independence is the way to take forward our country's political future.
What do you think Keir Starmer's legacy will be?
I think Keir Starmer has, probably the most important thing he's done is he's kept us out of the war in Iran, and that's been a benefit to us all. I think in other respects he's tried to make headway on issues in which I have significant sympathy, such as on the child poverty agenda, but even then the effort was half-hearted. It wasn't bold enough, it wasn't dramatic enough to make the type of progress that we've made in Scotland because of the bold action that we have been prepared to take. But fundamentally, the Prime Minister will have to look back on the last 2 years and realise that he's not delivered the change that he promised the people of this country.